Hey, I'm the coach, Brian Wright, here with the Coach's Corner. It is April 28th, 2026. Interesting. I'm going to talk real numbers and a little bit of anecdotal stuff. So, the real numbers. Paramount signed up 1 million new subscribers in one day around UFC 324, and UFC 324 is reported to have 5 million viewers at any given point in the broadcast. Now, that is a massive bump in viewers compared to what was being done prior to the Paramount era. Now, from an anecdotal point of view, my son, who's 13, he's a massive fan of the sport. Prior to the Paramount deal, he basically was being told by his friends that the UFC is not a real sport. Now, since the Paramount deal and they've had access to the cards, they have woken up to the idea that, wait a minute, this is a real thing. And they've become fans. Now, beyond the UFC interest, they're now asking about RFA as well. And then a couple of them are asking about dirty boxing. And the sport itself is now growing. So there's a lot of conversations about what has the Paramount deal actually done besides give the UFC a lot of fixed income. It brought in a lot of new eyeballs. There are a lot of people that were fringe looking at it and saying, this is not my thing. People that were comparing it to pro wrestling, saying it's not real, it's not a real sport, whatever. Now, because of the size of the deal, because of the size of the expansion of opportunity to watch it, it's free. Who's going to pay $80 for something they're not sure about? You'll try it for free, though. And then after that, you're going to make your own decision. So I think all in all, the Paramount deal for the UFC, in terms of viewership, is working out. In terms of credibility for the sport, it is working out. Are there kinks in the system? Absolutely. Does fighter pay still have to be addressed? Absolutely. But are fighters getting paid better? Absolutely. We're allowed to have two things being true at the same time that may seem contradictory in terms of fighters are getting paid better than they've ever been paid, but the pay is still an issue and needs to be addressed. The idea that everything is so black and white needs to go away. The UFC right now is at the largest point it's ever been, paying better than it's ever paid. And for a lot of complaints about matchups, maybe we had a weird time, but I think availability was a lot of it. When you look at what's coming up, we have massive fights about to happen. You have Sean Strickland versus Chimaev coming up. Just this weekend, you have Jack Maddalena versus Prates. Amazing fight. That's a fight night in Australia. That's going to be great. Then we've got, again, Strickland versus Chimaev. We've got Gon versus Pereira. Massive fight. You've got Gaethje versus Topuria. Massive fight. And then yesterday, I'm not 100% confirmed on this, but it looks like Max Holloway is going to fight Conor McGregor at International Fight Week. I don't know if you can get a bigger fight than that. So you've got Ronda Rousey sitting at MVP complaining, saying that she's like leading the revolution. I'm sorry. There is no revolution that can take on the juggernaut that is the UFC right now. I'm not saying this is a UFC shill. I'm not saying this is someone that has any interest in any of this. I'm just saying if you look at the landscape, MVP is flirting with Netflix. You've got Ronda saying that she wants to be Dana and lead the revolution. But again, what kind of revolution are you leading? So you have one card coming up that's being funded by Netflix that's paying very high numbers to a handful of people. You don't have a league. You don't have events going off every week. You don't have the ability to handle a roster of, say, 1,000 athletes to compete against this massive roster, this machine that is the UFC. And then when you look at the UFC and you look at how it's structured, there was a podcast, something the other day, and someone was talking about how they did this amazing deep dive and they put all this effort into figuring out who the ownership of Endeavor and TKO are and why they're so powerful. I'm sorry, guys, there's no massive secret to any of this. You didn't slip somebody some money to get the inside information. If you go on any basic AI model and ask who owns Endeavor, who owns TKO, who are the powers that be, and how do they all connect, you'll get a very complete report. If you have AI, if you have ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude or any of that, highly advise you, just go on there and ask who owns Endeavor, who owns TKO, who are the key positions in these companies, what else do they own besides Endeavor and TKO, and how does that all fit together? You'll get a full report. You have a collection of industry leaders across the entire spectrum of sports and entertainment that are coordinated together, that have put together a machine that leaves no number two to the organization. No one has the infrastructure, the political connections, the cash in the bank, the connections with the venues, the connections with the managers. I mean, it goes on and on and on, from merchandise to ticketing to events to media to promotion to all of it. The UFC is just a machine. They own every aspect of the sport in which they participate. There's no other organization that can do that. MVP has Netflix. Netflix has a massive user base. They have a ton of cash. They can put on shows, but they lack the connection to all the infrastructure to be competitive at this time. I mean, they could develop it over time, or they can fund somebody else to do it, but I don't know if that's the business that they're in. Netflix to me looks like they're into more spectacle type events, bring eyeballs to the table. They don't really care about selling tickets. They care about keeping their viewers happy so that they can keep their subscription model going. So I think it's the largest subscription service on the planet right now. Fact check me on that. Again, go to your AI and ask. But yeah, it's a very interesting time because, again, the UFC is so dominant. But the cool part is that people that were on the outside kind of looking at it, not really wanting to pay, are now getting it with their Paramount subscription. They're getting it through their Prime subscription. If you've got the Paramount add-on, you've got more people looking at it. And then they're judging for themselves if they like it or not. And then the more they look at it, the more interest they have, the more knowledge they have, the more conversations they can have with other people about it. And then it grows and grows and grows and grows. That's the organic growth that Paramount wanted, UFC wanted. Somebody was saying the other day they're not sure if Paramount's going to get their money back. I think the UFC is benefiting tremendously from this entire situation. I think that the new viewers or the new subscribers that Paramount got, it's not going to get them back the 1.1, I believe, billion dollars a year they're spending on this relationship is giving them, I mean, they're not maybe going to get dollar for dollar back directly out of the UFC, but for sure, between the infrastructure, the connections, and the opportunity, Paramount's coming out ahead on this. Nobody's losing money on this deal. This is a juggernaut. This is a monster that is going to be extremely difficult to put back in the box or to build a bigger box then. So we kind of have to accept that this is what happened. Stop complaining about how it was before, because I don't think the ESPN era was that great. I think that the beginning of the Reebok era was probably the most exciting time for the UFC, where it still had this little bit of a renegade feel, where now it has a little bit more of an NFL feel. But I think the entertainment aspect of the company Paramount being combined with the media strength of the UFC will produce much more entertaining content as we go forward. They're trying to figure out how the marriage of the two companies is going to increase the product. I don't think they're going to sit back and go on autopilot because they got $1 billion. I think they're going to keep investing in the product because they have to, because they still have 7 more years of this product to go. And you do need stars. Right now, my main criticism about the UFC is that they have not spent the time to develop stars like they have in the past. Before, the top 10 was very well known. The top 5 were basically superstars, where now we have 1 or 2 guys per division that are flirting with superstar. And a lot of guys that they wanted to be superstars, their careers didn't work out to the way that they wanted to. But that's the thing. This is unscripted. This is not the WWE. This is actual sport. You have to fight. You have to win. You have to be good to maintain your status. So they can pick and choose who they want to make famous, but that person also has to stay relevant by winning. So that's why for me, I'm saying, okay, broaden your investment, develop more stars so that if you have 5 people that are getting the media push, 1 or 2 of them will break through. But don't stop. Don't get greedy with a Connor type figure or think everybody got into that weird habit where this is the next Connor. Let's see not what's the next Connor, but what's going to be the next leader in the fan base. Who's the person that's going to have a unique personality that's going to bring the eyeballs in. Let's see if we can replicate that division by division, month after month, with multiple people, not just one, and hoping that it works out. And then you lose your investment, then you got to start over again. And then the fans start to complain because they're less engaged. Let's keep them engaged. Keep telling the stories. This is really a storytelling business. I've been saying that forever. We are just in the business of telling stories around sport. People do want to see the action, but they come to the table with dreams and aspirations that the storytelling put in their head. And then they see it all unfold, and then the drama increases. So yeah, we just have to keep the drama rolling. They will. It's a really good time to be a fan. We've got the limited amount of stars that we have are all fighting this summer. International Fight Week looks like it's going to be a banger. It looks like Islam's going to be coming back again. Max is going to be fighting Connor. There's so many other fights that I'm missing right now, but there's a lot going on. And the chatter that the UFC's missed a step, I don't really buy it. I think, again, there's really no number two, and they could coast, but they're listening and they're making the fights that we want to see. I don't think there's any fight that we want to see that's not happening right now. I think they're all either in the works or they're actually booked. The one that I'm really curious about is going to be Ian Gary versus Islam. If they can pull that off, it sounds like that is either done or close to being done. That is probably the most intriguing matchup to me in my mind. There's a lot of other fights that I think are going to be really good fights, but the Islam and Ian Machado Gary fight, that's one of the ones that I don't know. I think Islam wins, but I'm not 100% sure. And I do actually care how that goes down. There's enough drama, there's enough background, there's enough stylistic difference to grab my attention. I'm very interested to see how that goes. And then we still have the White House card, which people have said is lackluster, but I still think it's great. I think the fight week in DC is going to be very interesting. They have a lot of different things going on. If people can put their politics aside and just enjoy the UFC in a unique environment, I think we have a good week. I believe Dirty Boxing is going to be putting on a card in DC. It hasn't been confirmed. I don't know for sure, but I know it's something that's been spoken about. It's something that they've loosely committed to. So that will be very interesting if Dirty Boxing goes to Washington, D.C. on UFC White House card fight week. That makes Washington, D.C. the fight capital of the world for that week, which is very interesting. If you've been to D.C., it's a great town. There's so many things to do, and there's just so much history and so many unique opportunities for visuals, for drama, for connecting with fans. The city's going to be packed with fans for the UFC. Combine that with the DBX people. I think DBX will be a fight party. The UFC will be a very interesting, I'm going to say weird event because it's not a traditional fight model. It's a shorter card with less people, but it's going to be on the White House lawn with this wild erector set of a cage setup. Paramount's definitely going to go all out. The broadcast will be cool. It'll be shorter. We won't have to sit there for 8 hours. That looks like probably a 2.5, 3 hour show, but the lead up to it will be great. The event will be great. The follow through will be great. Yeah. It's just going to be a good time. So, yeah, April 2026. I've been keep saying it. This is the year to be a fight fan. And just yesterday, they were talking about RAF. You've got Merab versus Frankie Edgar. That's pretty cool. That's really interesting. You got Gable Stevenson, RAF. You got Chris Weidman at RAF. You got Chimaev is now at RAF. RAF is an up-and-coming property. My question is the UFC going to allow their fighters to keep going there as this thing grows? Armin Sarukian was saying the other day that the fight pay is starting to get closer to his UFC pay, which is interesting in itself. So RAF is clearly making money. They clearly have good product. They have good relationships, and they're financially secure if that's happening. Now, will the UFC stand for that? Will they cut that off? Or will you see a merger? Will RAF move from Fox Nation to, say, Fight Pass or Paramount? That's going to be the interesting thing. Is the UFC going to start picking up other properties to prop up its other media arms? Are they going to bring things to Paramount? Are they going to put things on Fight Pass? Are they going to keep shoring up their walls so their guys stay only in their ecosystem? That's what they tend to do. But RAF seems to be financially strong enough to not need to do that. But the problem is other organizations, when they've gotten into that position, the UFC has done what they can to shut them down or to limit their growth. The UFC likes to be number one. They like to be in control. And RAF is kind of that outlier. So we got to see what happens there. There'll be some drama. And it's really funny because you got Eric Bischoff at RAF, and he was the guy behind WCW. This is a man who understands manufacturing conflict to get eyeballs and to profit. So will he turn RAF into the NWO against the UFC, which will be the WWE, WWF kind of product that they go against? Or does he not care about manufacturing that drama and he just connects things so that the company can keep growing? Is it going to be about drama? Is it going to be about wrestling? Who knows? But I think by the end of this year, if the UFC doesn't get cranky and do something, RAF is just going to keep rolling along and keep getting bigger because the wrestling community in the United States is massive. You have a built-in fan base wherever you go. Every high school has a wrestling program. Every town now seems to have a wrestling club that's going all year round. Wrestling's pretty big right now, and we're doing a lot of good things with USA Wrestling. So wrestling has a great audience. MMA has its audience. The merger of the two has created this amazing RFA product. And it just is going to be kind of a wait and see. Is the UFC going to allow them to coexist? Are they going to allow them to augment the pay of UFC athletes? Or is the UFC going to want control of all of it and bring RAF in, or try to bring it in, cut off the UFC athletes, and then Bischoff is going to go and do what he's done in the past? Or is he just going to take a check and allow it to get absorbed? I don't know. We'll see. But that'll be an interesting storyline to keep our eyes on. So this is Brian Wright, April 28th, 2026. Amazing time to be a fight fan. I'm really looking forward to the next couple of weeks of the UFC. I think we're going to have a phenomenal summer of fights. Tell me what you think. Like, follow, share, comment. Let me know. All right. Again, Brian Wright, Coach's Corner. Peace.